Off Limits is the money podcast that blows up stereotypes, showing you that managing money doesn't have to be hard.
We want you to thrive, not only with your money, but in every part of your life.
What you will get out of this podcast is real, relatable, and relevant tips and strategies that you can apply today. Hi, I'm Donald Raymond, and this is
Christine Spiak. We are money coaches, business owners, and colleagues who are passionate about helping you become more of who you are. So if you're ready, join us.
Fund absolutely is for those unknowns and to capture anything that you don't plan for, but that doesn't like open up the door for don't make a plan, right? Like we're just going to pay for it out of the emergency fund. Because if we're following the rules, then we shut everything down and go back to bare bones so that we can replenish the emergency fund as quickly as possible. So really that doesn't do you any good, and it really becomes more painful in that scenario. So we definitely don't want to encourage anybody to use that strategy. Instead, let's get super intentional and super granular with all of the different things that are happening. And even more obvious than the vehicle maintenance and the home maintenance, how many people are planning ahead and setting aside money for Christmas gifts? Some of us do. A lot of people don't. And Christmas is not a surprise. It happens every single year. You're going to buy some gifts. Birthdays. We now have a calendar of birthdays, and we have a gift we need to buy, cards, flowers for something every month of the year. Our family is big enough. We know enough people. We get involved in enough people's lives. There's not a month that goes by that we don't buy a gift for somebody. My son is going to somebody's birthday at least once a month, especially through the summer months. And so there's always going to be that need. And if you're not planning for it, it becomes a budget buster. And all of a sudden, you've got this extra expense. And if you don't have that plan in place, and it's okay too. I'll say it this way: if you spend on something that you didn't plan to spend on, that's fine, as long as you can go back to your budget and you have enough room built into it that you can make adjustments so that at the end of the month, you don't go over, right? Something has to come down in order for that expense to get covered if you're going to prioritize it and spend money on it. Otherwise, you're out of balance. All of a sudden, the zero is a negative. It's not a zero-based budget anymore. So that's why we want to just, every 2 weeks, centering this activity around payday or some other frequency that just works for your life is so critical. It's not a set it and forget it. We have to interact with the budget. And so, the how becomes very hands-on. How do we have a budget? How do we make a budget work? You said it takes 3 to 6 months to 3-4 months to get started, kind of get going, 6 months to get a rhythm. I would say even the whole first year, you're trying to figure it out. You're constantly making those adjustments. And what you learn is that you're never going to get it right. It's always going to need to be adjusted, always going to need to be updated. So I think more than getting it right, it's the acceptance that it's never going to be right. And so you're just always going to be in there kind of tweaking and tuning and making sure that you're making adjustments as that life is kind of happening, and then hopefully being a little bit more proactive next time so that you can capture these things as they happen.
And one way to set yourself up for success with that is every month be budgeting money for a miscellaneous category.
Absolutely.
That can be anything from, very sadly, somebody passed away and you want to send a meal to the family's home or make a donation in their memory. It could be, friends are going out for dinner and a, fun night of entertainment, and that wasn't in our budget, but we want to participate and do that with them. We have money set aside in this miscellaneous category that gives us flexibility each month to not have to feel like we need a crystal ball in order to write a budget. You don't need the crystal ball. You need to have an idea of where your money is going, but there's always every month going to be something that pops up that you couldn't plan for because you had no idea it was coming down the pike.
Yeah, and if you don't have enough to fund those categories, then have the confidence to say no. So until you can afford to, don't do those things. Even investing is one of those activities that you don't want to do until you can afford to do it, and that scares a lot of people. But in order to have a successful budget, in order to live within your means, you have to know and you have to have very clear boundaries around what you can and what you can't do. And if you're living, thinking even the 80-20 rule, I have to live off 80, I have to save 20. What if right now, currently today, you just can't afford to do that with your income, right? So it takes 100% of your income to cover the bills. Well, that is definitely something that needs to be addressed. But if you don't have the 20%, you don't have the 20%. So don't get yourself further into the hole because somebody told you had to save the 20%.
Right.
I want you to save. We want you to save as early and as often and as much as possible, but not if we're going to sacrifice our ability to maintain a zero-based budget. I don't ever want somebody to go into debt because they thought they had to save, right? And I think sometimes that's something that can get confused as well.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Off Limits.
Beyond the podcast, we are money coaches who want to help you.
So if you are looking for help managing your money, use the links in the description below to contact either of us and learn how coaching can help you thrive.
Lastly, please help us to spread the word by subscribing, leaving a comment, and sharing our podcast with your friends and family.